It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
.06 the time. It's a Wednesday. Primary day was yesterday. I got most of the election results for you. Just a few I don't have, but most of them. We'll go through that this morning.
Today's show is sponsored by pre-chewed bubble gum, scraped fresh from under high school desks. Yum, yum.
That was also called ABC gum when I was a kid. Already been chewed.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
So all the votes that there were to be had were gathered up yesterday, and of course in Wyoming, most all of the counting happens. We do have all the results in, but whether they've gotten to me or not is the only reason I might not have results in some races. But also, that was the primary. The general election still has to happen. So here, essentially on a statewide level, is what happened. The Wyoming Freedom Caucus has done pretty well. They're not in control of anything, but the first time they appeared on the scene, and this is a much more conservative group than your average Wyoming Republican in the House or Senate. And they want to bring much more of a conservative tone to the Wyoming House and Senate. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means later on in the morning. And that includes things like school choice and other stuff like that. But they don't want what they consider to be rhinos, essentially. So, okay, that's where the discussion was. And in the first go-around a couple of years ago, they gained a few seats. This time, they gained some more, with the potential in the primary election of gaining even more than that. And I say that because, that was general election, because the primaries happened, but there's still some races where these Freedom Caucus members have to go up against some Democrats, and I think overall they'll do pretty well. Now, some old guard was taken out, and this was the surprising part of last night's election, that some people that had been around for quite a while in the Wyoming Senate, let's focus on the House, are gone. Now, just so you know, on the national level, John Barrasso won easily. He had two people going against him, and he won with 67.9% of the vote. He would have gotten more than that, but he had two people running against him, so it's 2 against 1. Harriet Hageman only had one challenger. She won with 80.7% of the vote. Now, on a state level, let's see some of the names. I'm going to destroy this one here. Laura Talaferro beat House Speaker Albert Summers. That win was a bit shocking because Summers had been in the House for about 24 years, and he was Speaker of the House, and he's ousted by someone brand new. By the way, this is a lady who, among other things, I think she and her husband herd sheep, but also she was a school bus driver. So now she beats the Speaker of the House, who had been in there for 24 years. Mike Schmidt beat, again, I'm going to destroy these names, Kat Urgabit, Urbigkit. I have no idea what to do with that name. But anyway, Sublette County race. And once again, that was a incumbent that had been an incumbent for a long time, and here's someone new. Casper area, Julie Jarvis beat a Freedom Caucus member. Janet Ward had been a Freedom Caucus member for one term, and she's been very well known for her aggressive style. But she had one term, and she was out. Here comes Julie Jarvis to replace her, and then, let's see. What is with these names? We'll just call this guy Joel, beat out an incumbent, Ember Oakley, House District 55. And then there's, the incumbent was beat out in House District 38. Cheyenne Dan Zowitzer, who has been 11 terms in the House of Representatives, 11 terms. He was beaten by a Freedom Caucus member. So you get the idea of how these races are going. So the Freedom Caucus, again, could pick up some more seats because they still have to go through the general election in order to technically do this. And they'll be up against some Democrats. And most of them they'll win because usually the Democrats lose. We'll find out when the general election rolls around. So, okay, let's see. Before the primary, Freedom Caucus had 26 votes of the 62-member House. So you can possibly add another 11 to that, which means, they're starting to put a decent-sized footprint in there. And now we'll see where that takes us. Because, again, when we take a look at let's take a look at some of the things the Freedom Caucus has done over the past couple of years. And see, they had sponsored a couple of bills which would outlaw discrimination for not wearing a mask. They have a Life is a Human Right Act, anti-abortion. They have the Wyoming Abortion Trigger Law, the Livestock Identification Choice Act, which protects the privacy of livestock owners from government disclosure, which was signed into law. And see, there was HB 0070, which guarantees, this I did like. I like the idea of freedom of choice when it comes to schooling. Did you want a charter school or a private school or whatever? So this bill guarantees homeschool freedom by eliminating the requirement for an instructional program to be provided to a single-family unit. That was signed into law. And let me see. They address crossover voting and things like that. You get the idea of what they're for and what they might be against with the Freedom Caucus, but mainly they wanted to get rid of the old guard. And so far they've been doing that in both House and Senate by removing some people who have been there for a very long time. Now, again, this doesn't mean that the Freedom Caucus has taken over the House or the Senate, but they've definitely made a good-sized footprint there now. So we'll see what happens next. Some of those wins were really a big shocker. Like, again, the Speaker of the House, 24 years. 24 years he'd been there as Speaker of the House. And suddenly gone. I bet to him that was a shocker to the former Speaker of the House. Now would be former Speaker of the House. All right. Some of the other numbers, let's take a look at John Barrasso for just a moment. Because, again, he did get 67.9% of the vote, which is low for him. But that was split between Reed Rasner, who I did have here a couple of days before the election, and John Holtz, who I believe I spoke to at some point, but I don't think on the air. But anyway, John Holtz got 7.6%. Let me give you numbers on that. John Barrasso got 70,473 votes. Reed Rasner got 25,424 votes, and John Holtz got 7,867 votes. So, that's the biggest chunk ever taken out of John Barrasso, but only because there were two people nibbling away at him, which gave him that low score. Still, though, he wins with 67.9% of the vote. So Barrasso goes up against Scott Morrow, who is a Democrat. Have you ever heard of Scott Morrow? Exactly. So that would be a no contest. All right. Going down to Harriet Hageman. She only had one person against her, Stephen Helling, which is someone who did call this program a couple of days before the primary to get on. Stephen Helling got 19.3% of the vote, and Harriet Hageman got 80.7% of the vote. Those exact numbers are she got 82,765 votes. He got 19,738. And I think most people didn't even know who Stephen Helling was. It's just they didn't want to vote for Harriet. Right. So Harriet goes now up against Kyle Cameron, who called this program yesterday, a Democrat who called the program yesterday to talk about running as a Democrat. So I think we all know how that race will go in the general election, but of course here comes the general election. And then it goes on to, there's a lot of uncontested. I saw some signs out there for Brian Bonner, he's uncontested. Tara Nethercott, uncontested. I go down many of these races here that were just absolutely uncontested by Democrats, although maybe they would be contested within the Republican Party. And I have list after list after list, precinct after precinct. This is where I said, once again, not many Democrats, I'm not going to say none, but not a lot of Democrats compared to past years entered the race this time. And most of them I've never even heard from. All right, I got some more numbers out there, which I'll dig into in just a few minutes.
What's your biggest ick in a guy? Probably when they drive like a Tesla or any type of electric car. Why? I don't know. I'm not really like into feminine guys. You know, like they need to be masculine. And it's feminine to drive a Tesla? It's not very manly like when your car doesn't make any noise.
You asked for an expert. We didn't have the budget for that. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays 6 to 10 a.m. and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
Manage the disease together. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
.624 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, so I'm just bringing in some of the numbers from last night's primary races across Wyoming, and I'm doing sort of a general sweep here because you'll have to find out. Many of you are listening in all sorts of different places all across Wyoming, so you'll have to find out locally what happened to your city council, county commission. What I have is more of a general across-the-board numbers here. And again, yes, Senator Barrasso wins easily. Harriet Hageman wins the primary easily. They each have a Democrat against them in the general election, but okay. And then when we take a look at the Wyoming House of Representatives, the Freedom Caucus stepped up with a bigger footprint, which could get bigger even when we get through the general election. But Freedom Caucus, that made a nice footprint and has made a difference, quite a bit of a difference, in the Wyoming House of Representatives. Now is going to have a much larger footprint. And again, after the general election, maybe even larger than that. Not so much taking over, but you can't ignore them anymore. There's absolutely no way. Now, another one which I thought was really interesting. Do you remember Senate District 6 candidate Darren Smith? So this is a guy who a while back was running for Congress and got the endorsement of Donald Trump for doing that. But here's the story from Cap City News. Senate District 6 candidate Darren Smith easily earned enough votes to move to the general election following a primary battle against 5 other candidates. Now, this is an interesting seat that he was fighting for here. He received, since it was just a Cheyenne race, 942 votes, about 43%. And then it talks about the other candidates that were against him. And it was kind of tight. I mean, one candidate got 385 votes, another one got 287, another one 265, another one 261. And the lowest is a guy who earned 48 votes. So it's 942 votes, that's 43%. He wins it. No Democrat Party candidate for that seat. So he wins already the general election. This is the seat for those in Cheyenne who remember Anthony Bouchard, who decided not to run again. And Anthony Bouchard was a controversial figure, mainly because not so much of what he stood for, but mainly for the tactics that he used, which people just didn't really get along with him. And that was, sorry to say this, Anthony, that was your fault. And so eventually Bouchard decided, I'm not going to run again. And that leaves that Wyoming Senate seat open. And a whole bunch of people piled on. And Darren Smith has been trying to run for some political offices he's tried before. This is the first time he's won something, so he's in there, taking Anthony Bouchard's position. I would expect, and we'll see what happens, I would expect Darren Smith to have the same points of view and same ideas for legislation as an Anthony Bouchard, although I expect his tactics to be very different. He's kind of an aggressive guy, too. But I don't think anyone would be as aggressive as an Anthony Bouchard would be. So we'll see how that plays out. So there's where we are in the Wyoming House and Senate. And then across the state, again, I got to get more of it. There's a lot of small town and even county races here. which the numbers are out there, but what that means, I've got to start talking to people who are from those areas to find out what exactly happened with their district, were any major changes made, because it's certainly a bit of a change for the Wyoming House of Representatives, especially as it goes more to the right, more conservative, more to the right. What happened with the other races around the state of Wyoming, I don't know at this point, but it's really going to be interesting. It seems to me there was a statewide trend to get rid of the older establishment. Some of you will say rhinos. In some cases, I think that's true. But in many cases, just older establishment, and bring in more aggressive, more conservative people. That seemed to be the trend across the state of Wyoming, what happened last night. All right, coming up on some local news that we have to take care of. After a local news update on the weather forecast, you and I get back into it again. 888-97 Woods is the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
The best talk show host in the state, within his price range. Tune in to Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, weekdays at 6.
Time is 6:36. It's Wake Up Wyoming, and phones are open. 888-97 Woods, 888-97-WOODS. Gathering up the numbers from last night's carnage, primary election. So let's see. Jeff in Casper says, in some parts of the state, maybe the old guard was thrown out. And that certainly, if you're just joining me, that certainly was the case. There were quite a few old guard members of the Wyoming House, and especially the Speaker of the House, who had been around for, I think, like 20 years. And he's out. And someone brand new has never held offices in that seat. Quite a few seats were flipped that way in the state of Wyoming last night. He says, but Charlie Scott got reelected, it looks like. I think he is the longest-serving representative in the nation. And I believe Charlie Scott, who I had a chance to talk to again just before the primaries happened, I think he said he's been around for like 24 years in the House of Representatives. So he's still there. So some of the other results that I have, I think I mentioned this one. Julie Jarvis defeated Janet Ward, and Janet Ward was a member of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, and known for being rather aggressive, and sort of built a reputation for that. But one term, and Julie Jarvis now has her seat. Barrasso and Hageman, of course, easily win. Let's see, Wyoming voters boiling mad over misleading mailers. I thought this was a pretty good story. This is from Wildfile, and there's been a lot of talk about this. I think I talked about this with you guys before we even got near primary time. Story says, from Sublette and Sweetwater counties, voters streamed in and out of the high school early Tuesday to go ahead and vote. And outside the polling place, the crowd was in high spirits. The story says Lander residents considered voting a civic duty. Very nice. Fremont County residents were inundated with political mailers, some false claims and misrepresentation, they said, and it made people boiling mad. One woman who spoke with Wildfile said she's not alone. A pitched battle between two factions of Wyoming Republicans this primary season received a slew of mailers that were sometimes sensational and sometimes misleading in the eyes of at least two GOP lawmakers. Quote, it shouldn't be that way. And I do remember when I talked to you about there's still a lot of people who are very mad about mailers that were put out that were basically political attack mailers. I don't know if they were effective or not. I can see, as I take a look at, there's a picture here of all these different mailers. There's at least one person here who did not win his seat back, but I can't say, and he was on one of the mailers. but I can't say it was or was not because of the mailer. But some people, got a lot of mailers out there from, as these two sides battled it out, that they said were just not true. I mean, over the top. Some of it just outright lies and attack mailers. So we'll see how that plays out in the long run, but I don't think that had very much of an effect. It made people mad more than I think changed anyone's opinion in this. Let me see. I have winners and losers. Hageman, Barrasso. There we go. Wildfile breaks down. They've got a pretty good story there. Let's see. Freedom Caucus gains ground. That's another headline that I already shared. Sweetwater County GOP voters oust Stith and retain 2 incumbents. So Stith is out. That's another name I've known over the years. Clark, I think is his name. First name Clark Stith. He's been around for quite a few years. He's out now. And I also mentioned Speaker of the House loses bid to a woman who I don't believe has ever held political office before. I'll have to find her and talk to her about that. Fremont County. Let me see. Larson squeaks by. Oakley loses her seat, so there's another incumbent out. There's a lot of stories as I went through all of this this morning. I'm noticing incumbent out, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Quite a few people out there would like to see a rotation of people who have been in office for what they think are too long. At one point, the state of Wyoming had tried to have limits on how long someone could hold office, like maybe 2 terms. They tried that, and that was overturned by the Wyoming Supreme Court because it's not written that way in our Constitution. So far, we can't have term limits in the state of Wyoming, although we tried it, unless we want to change something in our Constitution. But you can always vote them out. And I think that's what happened last night in a lot of these primary elections across the state, is a lot of the old guard was just voted out. It took a while to do it. It took quite a long time to do it. I think in part some people need to figure out how to run for office. And I've talked to a lot of candidates about that over the last few years, that if you want to do this, if you want to get rid of somebody you think has been in office for way too long or is not conservative enough, that's fine. But you've got to learn how to run for office in order to do it. And I think some of these people are finally starting to figure out how that works. 6:42, wake up.
Honestly, he's just happy to be here. Catch Glenn Woods on Wake Up Wyoming, weekdays at 6 on air, on Alexa, and on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
6:48 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name's Glenn Woods. Okay, so I don't have David Settle or Frank Gambino. Frank is back tomorrow to give us sports. First off, I have for you, Florida doctor who didn't wear hearing aids. I'm sorry, before I finish reading this headline, are you eating breakfast? Okay, I'll give you a moment to clear your passages there and put it down, just shove it away from you. No, I don't like catching people off guard when I read stuff like this and they're having breakfast. All right, ready? Here we go. Florida doctor who didn't wear hearing aids during colonoscopy couldn't hear patient screaming. Okay. Look, I swear to you, when I grew up in Florida, it was not like this. I swear. A hearing impaired doctor was placed on probation. Florida health officials say he began, and probation as in from being a doctor. He began performing a colonoscopy without his hearing aids and did not know the patient was not fully sedated. The doctor was accused of not immediately stopping the colonoscopy when the patient began yelling during the procedure. At the surgery center in Tampa, in a separate colonoscopy performed the same day, part of the procedure for a surgical technique he was doing. He was not a licensed doctor, according to, in a different procedure. He uses assisted hearing devices to communicate with his surgical team, but was not wearing them during the procedure where the complaint was filed. The complaint filed, and it talks about when and where and all of that in Tampa. According to a settlement reached this year, he has to pay $7,500 and is restricted from performing that procedure for a certain length of time. Now, I'm just going to toss this out to you. I just kind of wonder. For you, if that happened to you, would $7,500 be enough? Okay. I'm just tossing that out there. I'll let you decide. Oh, Steve in Casper says, I-80 is closed this morning. Don't know why. Okay, before I go on to the next thing, let me go ahead and look that up, Steve. I have, let's see, Wyoming. There we go. Travel information. I have the maps that's put out by YDOT from time to time. Thanks for that, Steve. I appreciate it. And I especially use this. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here's what I'm looking at right now, and it could just be fog in the area. Let me go ahead and click on it. And they don't have it totally closed. Eastbound, okay, road conditions. Okay, so here's what and what about westbound? Same thing. Road closed due to a crash. So thank you, Steve. I-80 is closed due to a crash. And then there's also closed rolling closures at this time. And that if you wanted to go around it by going on Highway 30, which you go from Bosler up through Rock River, Medicine Bow, down to Hannah, up and around through that area, that's closed off. And if you want to go through the Medicine Bow Forest for the same thing, road is closed off to through traffic. So apparently they had some kind of an accident there. And that I-80 closure goes all the way out to Wamsutter, from Laramie all the way out to Wamsutter. Interesting. If I can get more information on that, I will. Thanks for letting me know.
Who remembers playing sports when they were a kid? Like T-ball, soccer, round of applause if you gotta remember this, huh? Here's the thing. Now that I have kids in the sports and doing this stuff, I've noticed something. Sports, they change for kids. Yeah, we kept score, which is completely unheard of now, right? Because you don't want to hurt the kids' feelings if they lose, right? Because everyone's a winner. Right, guys? That's real life, isn't it? No. I've been to Walmart. We're not all winners out there, guys. All right? We're not all winners. All I'm saying is we need to teach our kids what it feels like to lose so they know what it feels like to win and work for it. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? Yeah. And get after a little bit. But I'm not going to get on a whole pedestal about this issue because we got bigger problems with kids' sports. The treats. You guys remember the treat parent at the end of the game? Yeah, the treats. In the 80s, we got awesome treats, man. We got like Mountain Dew or Surge. You guys remember Surge? Yeah, it wasn't Surge, it was Jolt Cola, 5 times the caffeine, right? You get that stuff, your kid would be like, wow! 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 Mow the lawn, drive the car, clean it. You got some sort of cupcake with it. Nothing healthy. It was great. Those were the treats. But you can't get away with treats like that now, can you? Something magically in the last few years called gluten came out. Ruined everything. Gluten issues? Are you kidding me? We didn't have gluten issues in the 80s. We just dealt with the diarrhea. You know what I mean? We just dealt with it. Got a little tummy ache or scrape on your knee, your daddy or grandpa back, rub some dirt in it. Eat the dirt. You guys remember the dirt mentality? Yeah, those were good times. Dirt fixed everything in the 80s. Maybe sitting there with a broken leg just dangling there, right? Just dangling. Your grandpa will be coming to put some dirt in it and walk it off. That's how it works.
Coming up on some local business we have to take care of. There's going to be news time, national local update on the weather forecast. Phone lines open, 888-97-WOODS, 888-97-WOODS. Wake up, Wyoming. Door. Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Wednesday, so there's election coverage and some trouble on Interstate 80. I'll get to that in just a moment.
Today's show is sponsored by Muskrat Fur Leg Warmers. Their fur, their leg warmers, they are nasty.
I think that was yesterday's. I got to upgrade that one. All right. Before I get, and for those who are just joining me, I did go through some of the election results, and I'll get back to that. And there's some other news to talk about. But several people, and thanks to those folks from Laramie, too, who are showing me what's happening on Interstate 80, and this is around, let me see, just east of Wamsutter, between Wamsutter and Creston, and it's marked from YDOT. It says, hazardous material cleanup. All lanes, milepost I-80. Be prepared to stop. Expect delays. So what the hazardous material is, I don't know. But now this explains to me when I got the first note from somebody, hey, trouble on I-80, why is it closed? I looked at it and thought, well, it's not just I-80, and it goes from Laramie all the way over to Wamsutter, but any other route that heads that way. So if you thought, okay, well, I-80's closed down in that huge area there, so I'll get on Highway 130 and kind of go over Medicine Bow and down the other side, and nope, they're not going to let you do that. Because they know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get down, and that's what's closed, way down there near Wamsutter. Oh, okay, well, then I'll go up to Bosler and head through Rock River and up to Medicine Bow, down to Hannah, back down to Interstate 80, and then I'll get through. No, they're not going to let you do that because hazardous material cleanup just east of Wamsutter. Everything is blocked westbound near Wamsutter at milepost 80. And as far as eastbound and so on, it's kind of a rolling thing that they're trying to do. And again, what the hazardous material is at this point, I don't know. That's all I got from YDOT. I find out more, I'll go ahead and give it to you. For those people who missed the first hour of the program, I was just going through some of the basics overall, statewide with the primaries, and it shows that the Freedom Caucus gained some more ground in the Wyoming House of Representatives. And some big names in Wyoming politics that have been around, some of them for several decades, are out, including the Wyoming Speaker of the House, who's been around, I think he's been around for like 20 years. He's gone. And replaced by a woman who, among other things, drives a school bus. So there's been quite a few changes out there in the Wyoming House and Senate. We still have the general election to go through, but so far, big gains made by the Wyoming Freedom Caucus overnight. As far as your local numbers, I don't have a whole lot of those, but from where you are, you can find out who won in your maybe county commission race or maybe in your city council races as well. All right. A story I've been wanting to get to for a while, but this whole election thing has been holding me off, and I wanted to get this to you. I know quite a few people in this area who love their motorcycles, and I get it. You're out west. We have open highways. Get a motorcycle. Go for it. And I know some people who own some very nice bikes of all sorts of different kinds. I mean, Indians, all sorts of different things. And, of course, we have some of the biggest motorcycle rallies in America right here, including Sturgis. And so, of course, I see them out there all the time. Some people started getting mad at Harley Davidson because Harley Davidson was going woke. That is changing. Here's the story. It says Harley Davidson released a statement Monday renouncing DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and other controversial company initiatives in the wake of social media outrage and withering pressure from longtime loyal bikers. It's one thing when people buy a new bike. It's the people who have been riding those bikes for a long time that have been very loyal customers. You don't want to lose them. Quote, it is critical to our business that we hire and retain the best talent and that all employees feel welcome, the statement reads. That said, we have not operated a DEI function since April of 2024, and we do not have a DEI function today. We do not have hiring quotas, and we no longer have supplier diversity spend goals. The statement also said that Harley-Davidson was releasing employee training initiatives and sponsorships while focusing on its most loyal customers. So in other words, they're more worried about who to hire that's best for the job, not the way it looks, not the way it appears, but hiring the best people for the job. Wherever they come from, they're going to find the best to give Harley-Davidson riders the best bikes that are out there. Quote, as a customer brand, we will focus exclusively on growing the sport of motorcycling and retaining our loyal riding community. In addition to support we already provide to first responders, active military, And veterans. One veteran felt it was long overdue. Quote, I think it's great, but they never should have changed their focus in the first place, said Clay, a former Navy SEAL and longtime Harley-Davidson rider from Colorado. So let's see what actually happens, he said. Harley-Davidson had faced grumbles for many years from longtime customers, the story says, including hardcore bikers who claimed that the Milwaukee-based company used them to build their brand and then abandon them for a different kind of rider. The dissatisfaction exploded in July, the story said, when social media influencer Robbie Starbuck outed several controversial interim woke policies. So Harley-Davidson has been one of the most beloved brands in America, it says, but recently they've decided to go totally woke, he said, again on his social media and podcast. So they seem to be backtracking now. The story goes on from there and just going back to, as I said, building and maintaining great motorcycles because they know that that's what you want, which goes back to what I've been saying a long time on this idea of hiring diversity, equity, and inclusion. Don't get involved, whatever it might be. Don't get involved. Same thing I said to Bud Light. Hey, Bud, sell beer. Don't take sides on anything. Here's what you do. Make a great beer and sell it at a great price. And there you go. Don't take sides, because when you do, no matter which side you take, you're going to lose your customers on the other side of the issue. Harley-Davidson, same thing. Just build and maintain great motorcycles. That's what you do. The joy and art of riding motorcycles cross country. Just do that. If you do, you'll be successful. The moment you start taking sides on issues, you'll start losing. No matter which side you take, you'll start losing people. Just do what you do to be the best and keep your customers happy by providing the best products that are out there at the best possible price and best service too, by the way. So it's finally good to see Harley-Davidson backtracking, and I know that Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch have been doing the same thing, just going back to their roots of, well, this is what we do, and not giving into any social or political pressure from anybody on any issue. It's the best way to maintain your business. Leave that kind of talk, and maybe for your personal life, for those people who want to be activists, but not in your business life, not unless you want to lose business, honestly.
Immorality may be fun, but it isn't fun enough to take the place of 100% virtue and 3 square meals a day.
Like a strong cup of coffee in the morning. Tasteless, but it'll get you through the day. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
7:20 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, I will keep going over this just because I know during the course of the morning, more and more people keep joining the show. So, yeah, Senator Barrasso won the primary. So did Harriet Hageman, and they won it easily with large numbers as usual. And then in the Wyoming House, somewhat in the Senate, but mostly in the Wyoming House, the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, the much more conservative group, got rid of quite a few big names and made some major strides. They're still not the majority, and you got to split. There's a few Democrats in the Wyoming House of Representatives and in the Wyoming Senate. It's mainly a battle between the more moderate and older guard Republicans and the newer, much more conservative Republicans, which are the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. And the Freedom Caucus has a much larger footprint now. If you want to find out what that looks like, there is a story on the Wake Up Wyoming website about it, and other news and information out there about who won and who lost. And some big names are gone, like the Wyoming Speaker of the House, who'd been around, I believe, for about 20 years, is gone to somebody who's very new, a school bus driver, for one thing. So some major inroads like that were made by the Freedom Caucus. And more numbers come in as far as local numbers for your town or your county. I don't have all of those numbers in front of you, but I'm willing to talk about it if it's of interest to you. It doesn't matter where you are in the state. So 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Now, just talking about Harley-Davidson, a story I've been trying to get to for a while. They are yet another company who tried to go all woke with DEI practices and so on. They were virtue signaling, hoping that that would improve their business. And it did exactly the opposite. And they started losing business. So they went back and said, okay, fine, we're just going to make great motorcycles, which is what I've been saying all along to them, to Bud Light, to many other companies. Don't get involved in political or social issues if you're running a company. Just do what you do best. For Budweiser, make great beer and sell it at a great price. For Harley, make great motorcycles at a great price and service the hell out of them. And you'll have loyal customers. And just keep it that way. Now, Grady, who was over there in Laramie, morning Grady, he said, haven't people learned from big businesses that a majority of Americans leave companies that perform these work and DEI policies? Also, look up the 1792exchange.com website. There's a lot of information on companies' divisive policies, actions, and collaborations of business relationships. It might be a good segment for the show. Okay, I'll go ahead and look that up. But, yeah, I do think it does hurt companies a lot, not just in reputation, but in quality, too. When they start pursuing things that are not, it's not what they do. In other words, they're taking their eye off the ball. When it comes to hiring somebody for a position, just hire the best person for the job. That's all. Just pick the best person for the job. And whatever that person looks like is what they look like. Doesn't matter. Okay? I don't care what their height or weight is. I don't care what their gender is or their religion or whatever. Are they the best person for the job? And that's what you do. And you focus on good people and good quality and maintain that brand. You do that, and people respect that. But if you start doing things for diversification reasons, you'll end up hiring people that have no idea what they're doing. In fact, one of the I think this is kind of a funny conversation. We take a look at Kamala Harris. So people get mad if you say that she was a DEI hire. She was not. Well, hang on. I got a question for you. If DEI is such a good thing, then why do you get mad when we say that that person over there was a DEI hire? You should be proud of it. Why do you argue she was not? Well, I thought that was a good thing. But I look at it and say, I don't care if you're offended by it. I think she was a DEI hire. Honestly, I do. Because that's oftentimes how Democrats will go ahead and form their ticket. They'll go ahead and try to pick the people that they think will resonate best with America. And they do that based on not so much qualifications anymore, but on what the appearance is, what they think the best appearance is that will inspire the American people to vote for Democrats. That's strictly why they do it. And so, yeah, I look at that and I think not just Kamala Harris, but a lot of people in the Biden administration at various levels of cabinet and other appointments that Biden had to make were DEI hires. And that is not good for business. Even on a government level, that's just not good for business. So I'm glad to see Harley Davidson turning around. As I said before, just make great motorcycles and service the hell out of them to keep your customers happy. That's what you do. All right, let me go back down. I'm curious about this now. Earlier this morning, I was sent a note, hey, I-80's closed down for some reason. So here's the latest that I have. From Laramie to Wamsutter, they are letting some traffic through, but it is a crawl. And see, at 6:59, almost 7 a.m., parking on the roadway prohibited. Okay. And it's supposed to be a hazardous waste cleanup. So that's what I'm getting right now. Road closed due to crash, and they're cleaning up some hazardous material, but it doesn't say what it was. And as of 7 a.m., estimated opening time is 6 to 8 hours on the interstate. Parking on the roadway is prohibited and delays YDOT from opening the road. Now, because they were dealing with hazardous materials, any road that might make you want to go that way is also closed. So if you were, let's say, thinking of in Laramie going, you could drive up, all the way up to Bosler, but you're not going to go. Then you'll have to go ahead and turn east on 34. You won't be able to take 30 to Rock River, Medicine Bow, Hannah, and then join I-80 because then you're just back in that mess again. And they don't want people on that road right now over there where the hazardous waste is, which is between Sutter, and Creston area. And then there's people who might get the idea, well, I'll just go up and over Medicine Bow. Same thing. Go up through Medicine Bow, Saratoga, and then try to head west on the interstate. That means you're going to be heading toward Wamsutter, and again, they're closing that area down. And because I don't know what the hazardous waste is. I have no idea what hazardous waste they're talking about. But they are saying that it might be a few hours before they get all of that cleaned up. Now, that's all I know at the moment. If I get more information on that, I'll go ahead and pass that along. I did pass that note also to our man in Cheyenne, Doug, see if he can find out about it. But Doug is working on fumes because he was up all last night covering election results, and he's working on very little sleep. But as I get more information, and I'll see if I can go ahead and contact YDOT and find out what's happening on I-80 as far as what hazardous material are they talking about, and it'll be, again, several hours before they consider opening the thing. Right now, if anything is moving on I-80, it is at a crawl. So if you're considering doing anything westbound, especially on 80, you're just going to have to find something else right now. And I mean way around. Way around. They're just not letting anybody in. Coming up on 7:30, local news coming your way. After local news, update on your weather forecast. You and I get back into it again. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. 7:45, Don Day is going to join me with an extended weather forecast. Wake up, Wyoming.
This show contains sarcasm that some listeners may find disturbing. A sense of humor is advised. Chat with Glenn live on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
7:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. All right, 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. I'm just keeping an eye on it. And it's going to be this way for a while. And again, thanks to everybody who started sending me notes on this. It's nice that you guys are out there across, not just Wyoming, but across the region, because we have listeners also in South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado, and you send me all sorts of notes about what's going on. So you're kind of like the eyes and ears of the program here. So let me do it one more time. Well, I'll do it more than one more. I-80 closed Laramie to Wamsutter. That's a long distance. And if you're thinking of alternative routes like 30 going around Rock River, Medicine Bow, and Hannah, no. And if you're thinking of, I'll just go over, through Saratoga and so on over the Medicine Bow National Forest, no, they're not letting you do that either. And it has something to do with hazardous material. And as of 7:30 this morning, they're saying it could be 6 to 8 hours to clean this up. If any traffic is out there, it's moving really slow. I'll keep you posted. I did inform some people out that way in our news departments. They're looking into it. We'll see. Now, I want to go back to this also and get your reaction on it, too. It really is interesting to me. We just had our primaries here in Wyoming, and yes, Barrasso and Hageman just easily beat everybody that was trying to primary them. Now we have the Wyoming, let's focus on the House of Representatives mainly. And there's a Wyoming Freedom Caucus. And what really is surprising to a lot of people, Freedom Caucus came along as more conservative than your average Wyoming conservative Republican in the House of Representatives. And much more aggressive, too. And at times they've been, people have been, I guess, not really happy with them because they have more aggressive tactics. but they want to get some things done, and they want to be much more conservative. They don't want to be moderate Republicans. They don't want to be more left-leaning Republicans. They want to be true Republicans. And they want to get rid of some of the old guard, the good old boy networks, if you will. And they've, in the last election that we had, 2022, they did pretty good. This time around, so let's take a look at, there's 62 members of the Wyoming House of Representatives. Up until now, the Freedom Caucus controlled 26 of those votes. You can probably add another 11 more. And the reason I say probably is they've won quite a few primaries where there were uncontested, no Democrats running, no Libertarians, no Constitution Party. So it was just them uncontested. Those races are done. That's like 6 races. The rest of them, they still have to go up against some Democrats in that area in order to make it a total of 11 seats. And that gives them a pretty good footprint, even though they're still not the controlling interest in the House of Representatives. They have a good footprint in there now, and they're going to be getting a lot more done. Now, some of the people that lost their seats this time around were some pretty influential Republicans, and some of them had been in there for a long time. So for those folks who wanted to clean house and get rid of some of these old guards, well, so, for example, House Speaker Albert Summers, I was getting it wrong. He's been around for 24 years, and he's Speaker of the House now, and he's gone. And I bet that was a shock to him when he was watching the results last night that he lost. And the lady that he lost to, I think her and her husband are sheep herders, I think, but also she drives a school bus. And I don't know that she's ever been involved in politics before, but there's one. And let me see. Cat Albright, that was a nail-biter, Sublette County. He lost his race. Representative Janet Ward, a very aggressive member of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, one term, lost to Julie Jarvis. Now, that was someone of the Freedom Caucus that lost. But, okay, let's see. Incumbent Ember Oakley, House District 55, gone. Tom Walters in District 38, gone. Dan Zawitzer, who's been in the House for 11 terms, gone. So you get the idea. These were some pretty big names that have been around for a while in the Wyoming House of Representatives. Again, I'm just focusing on that race right now. And a lot of those are gone. So it's not just that the Freedom Caucus will wind up with a much bigger footprint than they had before, but some major players that have been around for a very long time are also gone, and some new blood comes in. So now we have to wait to see, well, what's going to happen with this. For those who have, and I wonder things like this. This is one of the first things that pops into my head. You know, I'm a tightwad with the taxpayer money. I mean, seriously a tightwad. So can we even get rid of things like that shooting range that will cost the state of Wyoming $10 million just to build it? Can we work on getting rid of things like carbon sequestration for the state of Wyoming? I don't know the answers to all of this, but this is some of the things that I agree with, that the Freedom Caucus had been working on, and I was happy that they were, and also school choice in the state of Wyoming. In other words, a school voucher program where you can go ahead and choose. Do you want a public school, a charter school, a private school? What do you want to do? That was some Freedom Caucus issues that I didn't consider all that controversial for me anyway, and I wanted to see. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in this next legislative session. Get a hold of Don Day. Talk about the weather. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
This program is intended for immature audiences only. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays at 6 on air, on Alexa, and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
7:46 the time. Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to talk to Don Day from Day Weather. So, Don, first off, before we get into the weather, did you happen, I know you walk out of your house about the same time I do, notice not just that beautiful moon, Saturn was up, Jupiter was up, and Mars was up, and several other planets as well. It's a beautiful night.
Yeah, August and into September is a great time of year for sky watching, whether it's the planets or the stars or galaxies or the moon or shooting stars. It's just a good time of year.
Yeah. And I'm noticing also, as I'm looking out this morning up at the sky, some nice clouds up there this morning. It's like a fair weather day.
Yeah, we have a lot of subtropical moisture coming back up out of the south again. And so clouds are coming in layers. They'll come up from the south, move north today. So we have moisture, so thunderstorms are going to be a bit more commonplace. It'll be the east and the south, Glenn, that have the best chance. I think the central part of the state, around the Casper area, you're talking more of an isolated thunderstorm. But along the southeast corner of the state, then along the South Dakota, Nebraska border area, well, we're going to have some thunderstorms there, and a few are going to be strong. Hopefully we don't have another Devil's Tower type storm like we had earlier in the week, but a few storms out in those eastern plains will get stronger.
Okay, and does this bring in, I'm noticing some areas are forecasting a little bit of wind with this?
Yeah, unfortunately, winds are going to be a little bit more of a common feature between now and probably Saturday.
Okay.
This will be especially true I-80. The western side of the state will be the windiest. That's because of that low we talked about yesterday coming into the Pacific Northwest coast. But Casper and the Central Plains, this is the type of pattern when winds aloft start coming in from the southwest. It is going to be a bit windy. Today and Saturday are 2 days where you do need to be ready for some more wind than we've seen lately.
Okay, and this does translate into, as I've been teasing for a while now, we're getting into more mild temperatures and then eventually a test of the fall weather machine from Canada.
Yeah, 2 tests. First one comes in the western side of the state late Saturday and the Sunday. The western side of the state, Evanston, Jackson, Green River, Rock Springs on Sunday may not even get out of the upper 60s. The eastern side of the state will still be warm, but the whole state will cool off a bit on Monday. Then another front, a stronger front, is coming late Wednesday into Thursday of next week. So you put those two together. Those are 2 test drives of an early fall pattern.
All right. Thank you, Don. Don Day from Day Weather. So I'm thinking I'm enjoying the forecast so far. Overall, we've had a pretty mild year, if you think about it. Yeah, not just in winter, but spring stayed cool for a very long time. We had a couple of really hot days there in the summer, but most of the summer was mild. And then we start getting these fall temperatures again, which can be pretty typical. But again, we except for a couple of spikes in heat over a few short days, most of the time we've been spoiled this summer weather-wise. All right. So let's see. Frank Gambino is still out. He'll be back tomorrow. And David Settle, who usually helps us out, is also out and around and not helping us out. I'm sorry he can't. So that means it's up to you and me for what's usually the sports segment. Yeah, I don't know. I usually find something to fill in during the sports segment, and then I move on from there. And I pretty much have nothing after that, except I always pull into the files, and I've been slowly increasing the files of what to do when these guys are not around. For example,
I don't understand the reverence for sports. I don't get it, and maybe it's because I never played sports. I don't know. You see it a lot when the Olympics happen. Man, people lose their mind over the Olympics. And I know Olympians work their asses off. And I'll say this in all fairness. Never have so many people worked so incredibly hard for so incredibly long to do a thing that I don't give about at all. Couldn't care less. It's people throwing. I don't care. I threw a stick. Whatever, who cares? People love it, man. People go, do you know how few people in the world can do that? Do you know how few people are experts at that? Do you know how few people can do astrophysics? I don't want to watch it for 3 hours on a Sunday. It's boring dork to me. And the Olympics are so loved. The Olympics are so loved, they celebrate and commend bad sportsmanship. Last Summer Olympics, there was a women's running race. And at the end of the race, one of the women dove over the finish line to win. And the people I was watching it with, they were like, did you see that? Did you see that commitment right there? Oh, no, I saw cheating is what I just saw. She just cheated blatantly to win the race. No, that's called commitment. Nobody has ever said, man, Mike Tyson, wow, what commitment he showed when he bit that guy's ear off. Wow, that was amazing.
Playing that for you, and I'm going back and taking a look at the latest from YDOT right now, so pardon me if I keep updating you guys on this, but I think it's pretty important. I haven't found out yet what the hazardous material that spilled on I-80 is as of yet, but here's the latest. So I-80, I know I'm repeating myself, but this is important for those people just joining, between Laramie all the way over to Wamsutter. Boy, it is crawling. If it's moved at all, most of it's just closed. And if you try to go around by going up through Medicine Bow down to Hannah and so on, no. And if you try to go around over the mountains and through Saratoga and over it, no, they're not allowing that either. And what they're saying is hazardous material cleanup. All lanes blocked westbound near Wamsutter at milepost. It doesn't have the number here, but at the Wamsutter milepost. Be prepared to stop and expect delays. And then as far as the eastbound goes, because they're diverting all sorts of traffic over, that is just a crawl at this time. They don't have a whole lot going on there. And their expected time for cleanup is going to be a while. That could be 6 hours or maybe more on the cleanup, and that's all I have at this time. It started by saying road closed due to crash. Estimated time 6 to 8 hours. Parking on roadways prohibited and delays for opening the road, and they don't know exactly what that's opening is going to happen. So again, that's they've extended this now. It actually goes from Cheyenne all the way over to Wamsutter. All of that on I-80 is closed on the westbound lane. Eastbound lane is crawling along. And again, if you're thinking, well, I can go around, not through anywhere close by, again, not Rock River, Medicine Bow, that's, Highway 30, or 130 that goes over Medicine Bow. You're not doing that either. So they've extended this from Cheyenne all the way over to Wamsutter right now, and all they're saying is that's hazardous waste out there. Most of the reason for the extension of the closure is, well, because there's a lot of traffic out there, obviously. And they have to deal with all of that. Talk about a bottleneck here. All right, they're working on it. I get more information, I'll let you know. But that's where we're at right now with this. I did let some people in our news department know this, and we'll see if they get back with me. And anybody else who might be in that area, or even just with YDOT that might have, because I know some people with YDOT do listen to this program. If you know anything, please give me a call. We'll get you on the air so you can talk about it. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Store.
Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Wednesday, and over the hump we go. By the way, there's going to be a lot to cover this hour.
Sponsored by pre-chewed bubble gum, scraped fresh from under high school desks. Yum, yum.
We used to call that ABC gum. All right, I could use your help this next hour, actually 2 hours. So open phones this whole way, which I normally do at this time. Here we go.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
Can certainly talk election results from last night in the primaries if you want to do that at 888-97-WOODS. That's 888-97-WOODS. I'll keep going back to this. Just a little bit of an update on I-80. So earlier this morning, and again, I thank the listeners out there who started texting me, which you can do. If you download the Wake Up Wyoming app, it's free. And it gives you all sorts of options, things that you can do with it. And one of them is when I'm on the air, touch the chat button. And the chat button lets you text me. And I can text back. And I often do. And then I talk to people on the air about it. So I was made aware that, hey, I-80's closed. And they've recently extended that. In fact, I'll take a look at the recent map here. Last I looked at it was to Cheyenne. Yeah, okay. Right now, from Cheyenne all the way over to Wamsutter. And what's in the eastbound lane, too, east and west. But what they're doing is trying to get traffic out of the way. And if you think you can go around, don't try 30 through Rock River, Medicine Bow, Hannah. That's close. And don't try to go around over Medicine Bow and through Saratoga. They're not going to let you do that either. And the reason for closing down all of this, here's the latest from YDOT. And see, this was, nope, that was on the 15th. Okay. I got to make sure I get the right date there. And, excuse me, I'm just typing in to make sure I get the right date on this one. Okay. Travel information on I-80, all lanes blocked. Milepost 180. That confused me earlier today. All traffic is blocked because there is a hazardous spill that happened in that area. And they expect opening time to be about 6 to 8 hours. Let me see. There's some cameras that I can take a look at. I do like this with YDOT, that I can go ahead and click on different cameras for the area to see what's going on. And they do have most of the traffic cleared out of that area. So as I click on cameras that are looking at what is happening in those areas right now, I don't see a lot of movement out there because they have most traffic just off the road because of some hazardous material that's spilled. That's all I have at this time. If anybody knows anything else, and even if you're with YDOT and you know something else, I would love to know what's going on. But it could be 6 to 8 hours to clean all of that up. This is just like closing down I-80 in the wintertime, except this time it doesn't snow. It's hazardous material. What that hazardous material is, I don't know. Now, and real quick for those people, and I'm just going to summarize this, and we can certainly get into it, but I've been talking about all morning long what happened with the primaries. Yes, Barrasso won easily. Yes, Harriet Hageman won easily in the primaries. They go off to the general election now against Democrats who are not really well known. So we pretty much know who's going to win those. As far as the Wyoming House and Senate, mostly in the House, the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, a much more conservative wing of what's currently in there, made their pretty good-sized footprint much larger. They're not dominating, but it's a much larger footprint now. And they will be they will have a lot of control in this next legislative session. And some of the people they took out were old legacy members, like the Speaker of the House is gone. He's been there for 24 years. And it was taken over by a woman who drives a school bus. So that's what happened. If you want more detail, on the Wake Up Wyoming website this morning, I wrote it up for you. I'd love to hear what happened in your local elections anywhere around the state or around the region. So 888-97-WOODS. That's 888-97-WOODS. Now, on that note, let's go to the Democrat convention real quick. And I'm not going to go into what's happening inside the convention. I want to look at what's happening on the outside of the convention. My first headline: Chicago police cracked down hard on leftist mob that advanced on Israeli consulate near the DNC. So they show people in the videos that I have posted here, all sorts of arrested being made. And those people, pro-Palestinian protesters riot brought big bottles of lighter fluid toward the Israeli consulate in Chicago. Big bottles of lighter fluid. Okay. And then there's videos that I'm looking at here that shows police standing off against mobs of protesters and pushing them back away from the consulate. So there's that. Okay. Next one is new protest outside the DNC after additional fencing built in response to pro-Palestinian protests breaching the outer barrier. Crews installed additional line of security fencing outside the Democrat National Convention in Chicago early Tuesday. Hours later, during the second night of the convention, new protests broke out in the streets of Chicago, and that included some clashes with police. About a dozen workers installed a third row of fencing stretching east on Washington Boulevard from an area that was breached. The new row is now between two on that place. An additional security measure comes a day after pro-Palestinian demonstrators rallying against U.S. support for Israel, which is also Democrat support, Republican too, and its war against Hamas, split off from a larger protest and marched and breached security fencing near the United Center. They're waving pro-Palestinian flags and so on. So that's what's happening with the protesters out there. I'm saying this because there has not, as far as I'm concerned, been a whole lot of news covering this. I know that police, I don't know if they have National Guard, but there's been a lot of people out in uniform in large number to try to put a stop to this, and they've had their hands full. So there's still 2 days left of the convention, and so far the police have had the upper hand on all of this, basically stomping out the embers before it became a full-fledged fire. So for those people who've been worried that it was going to be as bad as the riots in the 1960s at the Democrat convention in Chicago, so far that's been prevented. It could have gotten out of hand. I mean, people are showing up to the Israeli consulate with lighter fluid. Now, I don't know. That could have been to light American flags on fire. I don't know. I don't think they were planning to burn the consulate down that I'm aware of. Maybe if you have a bottle of lighter fluid, you want to burn an American flag. Because that's not really what I saw that they had was not enough to burn the building down. But you can certainly burn an American flag with that. So we'll see what happens in the last 2 days. Does it escalate? Does it fizzle? Whatever the case is. In the meantime, inside the convention, I'm sorry to say I really haven't been paying a whole lot of attention.
What's your biggest ick in a guy? Probably when they drive like a Tesla or any type of electric car. Why? I don't know. I'm not really like into feminine guys. Like they need to be masculine. And it's feminine to drive a Tesla? It's not very manly like when your car doesn't make any noise.
So many opinions, we had to build the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app to hold them all. Free download from AM 1030 K2 Radio.
8:20 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. And thanks for all the texts I'm getting from people out there. You can text message the program by using the chat option on the Wake Up Wyoming app, letting me know the latest on I-80, which is closed for a hazardous spill, and we'll keep you posted on that and other news that's going on out there. Now, a little while ago, you heard just a few days ago, Kamala Harris say she wants to implement price controls, which, by the way, has never worked in the history of price controls, ever. No matter where, not just in America, but other countries, anywhere. It's never worked. So I came across an article that was written by an economist, which is what exactly would happen if we do this. And when he talks about what exactly would happen, it's not that he's just offering some opinion on this. He's basing this on what would happen and what has happened in the past. Number one, government announces that grocery retailers cannot raise their prices anymore. Grocery stores, which operate on a 1% to 2% margin already, can't survive if their suppliers raise prices. Now think about that. The grocery stores can't raise prices, but what if the supplier does? And that supplier is not just the distributors. That can happen anywhere along the chain. Even before the farmer or the rancher. I mean, what if the prices are raised on items that farmers and ranchers need? But then there's the farmers and ranchers themselves that might have to because of fuel and other things. Then there's, of course, the truck drivers and other distributors and people who process foods. Anywhere along the chain, somebody has to raise prices. We get to the grocery store, they're not allowed to. So the government announces that food products, Kraft, Heinz, Tyson, Hormel, so many others, are not allowed to raise prices. What do you think would happen next? Yeah, that puts a lot of grocery stores out of business. if they're not profitable, they just go out of business. This is the unintended consequences from people who don't think things all the way through. Because they just look at the price at the grocery store on the shelf. Well, don't raise it. How about that? And what about the rest of it? You've got to think things all the way through. Next up, not all grocery stores are created equal. Stores in lower income areas make less money than those in higher income areas. The guy who's writing this says, as a former disproportionately sell lower margin packaged good center of the store, instead of higher margin fresh products like meat in the premium store, because stores in lower income areas aren't able to cover overhead. Okay, remember, even if their wholesale costs are fixed, their labor costs, and think about this, it's not just the price of the item of the food. They have other costs that could get raised. Their labor costs could go up. Their utilities could go up. Their insurance could go up, and other expenses. So those grocery chains, that'll force them to shut down. So the small grocery stores out there will be the first to go. Food deserts in rural areas, Wyoming, will be hit hard. Meanwhile, margins for food producers are also quickly eroding. Their primary costs, ingredients, energy, labor, aren't fixed. And their shrinking gross profits leave less cash flow available to cover overhead, maintain the facilities, and reinvest in additional product capacity. So again, you're not thinking this all the way through. If you think, well, eggs are too high, so we'll just freeze the cost of eggs. Okay, that's fine. What happens if my utility rates go up? And I'm not allowed to charge more for my eggs or any other products. What am I supposed to do to cover that? And utility costs are going up, by the way. All right, now grocery chains, which have finite shelf space, start to repurpose their stores, those that don't shut down, to sell more non-price controlled items, everything from nutrition supplements to kitchenware to apparel and less price controlled food products. So your Kroger and Safeway starts to look like a Walmart with less and less food in there. Food producers stop making products at lower margins. Grocery store chains start competing with each other to secure inventory. Since they can't compete by offering stronger prices, remember, producers aren't allowed to raise prices, and even if they could, grocery store chains would no longer have the gross profit to bear the price increase. So what do you think will happen? See, once again, it sounds great. No, all we got to do is just freeze prices. Sounds great until you start considering everything involved. Next, small grocery chains start to shut down entirely or get sold to larger chains. In addition to not being able to cover costs, a major reason for this is because they can no longer reliably secure delivery of products due to producers prioritizing sales to larger customers, your big chain stores, which are leveraged and are leveraging stronger balance sheets. Smaller food producers, which typically sell via distributors rather than directly to grocery chains, they go out of business because producers have an additional step in their value chain, which basically because they have lower volume, it's a volume business. They can't buy at lower prices because it's a volume business, and it's a small grocery store in a small town. And some of you folks out there living in small towns already know what I'm talking about. Let's go up to Graybull, Wyoming. You lost a store a while ago. And I know is that the only grocery store you had in town? But I know you lost a store a while ago. So there are some small towns out there. They lose their grocery store. That's all they had. They have to drive way off somewhere else to find food. Next, as supply chains break down, lines start to form outside grocery stores. Now, again, this is not theory. This has happened in the past. Cities, again, assign police officers to patrol stores and parking lots. Why? Well, because theft starts to go up. Theft is on the rise, which is already happening anyway because of inflation. Federal government announces a program to issue block grants for states to purchase and operate shuttered grocery stores. That's been done in the past. Government announces that prices of all key foods, cost corn, wheat, cattle, energy, and so on, are now fixed to stop profiteers from gouging. Now we have a government-operated food industry, and shockingly, the government struggles to operate one of the most complex industries on the planet. The entire food supply chain starts imploding. Again, I know what I'm saying here is true. I'm reading from what an economist has said, and that's because it's happened before. Tammy is in Casper on grocery stores. Good morning, Tammy.
Hey, Glenn, how are you?
Very good. What you got for me this morning?
Well, you're talking about these stores changing up their merchandise. Have you been into Hobby Lobby lately? They've started carrying bedding and sheets and comforters and things like that.
Anything that they think that you might be able to buy. If what's normally selling doesn't... Go ahead.
Yeah, something to diversify, because Hobby Lobby is, basically the materials and craft items and stuff like that. But now they've got a whole section that sheets and comforters and pillows that they never had before.
Well, and that's what this economist is saying. What would happen to grocery stores is, as it's harder and harder to get food items under price controls, they start carrying stuff that are non-food items because those can't be price controlled. And so eventually your grocery store looks less and less like a grocery store.
You're right.
All right.
And that's what we're in for.
Thank you, Tammy.
Glenn.
Appreciate it. Coming up on some local business that we got to take care of. Morning, Bert. He's in Cheyenne. Morning, Glenn. It bothers me that in her speech, Michelle Obama asked if Trump knew that it was a. Okay. I'll have to look into what you were saying, Bert, and then I'll get back to you on that one. I hadn't heard that part. I didn't listen to, but just like a minute or so of her speech. But I'll answer you that one in just a minute. Local news coming your way. Update on your weather forecast is right after that. Then you and I get back into it. Open phones. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97 WOODS. Wake up, Wyoming.
Listen to Glenn Woods anywhere you roam with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
8:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97 WOODS. You can talk about what I'm talking about. Change the subject. Fine by me. Still monitoring I-80 for you, and I know it's going to be a while because YDOT is saying about half of I-80 is closed down. Plus routes that could have gotten you around some of this closed too, just because of a hazardous spill. I don't know what the hazardous material is, just something hazardous spilled. And so they just shut it down. So from Cheyenne to Wamsutter is closed. And any route that you thought, well, I'll just go around, no, you're not. So that's just closed off for a while. And you can imagine, you've seen it in the wintertime, how the truckers get backed up on something like that. All right, so now you can call and change the subject if you want, 888-97 Woods. I'm going to just build a little bit more on what I was saying last half hour, because I think it's important to take a look at, not just economically, but as a thought process. Oftentimes, and this I've learned this the hard way myself. I put this in my book, The Uncomplicated Life, which you can still get. Check on Amazon, The Uncomplicated Life by Glenn Woods. Thin, little, uncomplicated book. Because I can't write a big, thick, complicated book called The Uncomplicated Life. No person in their right mind would read that. And one of the things I talk about is finishing the thought process all the way through. A lot of people just think to a certain point and then they stop. And they don't ask, but what else? What else could... You don't want to overcomplicate it, but you want to take a look at variables. All right. So it's really easy for someone who knows nothing about economics, like Kamala Harris, to say, well, grocery store prices are out of control, so we're just going to freeze prices. There, that solves that problem, right? Well, if that's as far as your thinking goes, it sounds logical. Until you start to play with that a little bit more in your head. Let's continue on beyond, okay, so you froze prices. What else? As I mentioned last half hour, so let's say you're a grocery store owner and government just ordered you to freeze your prices, which they, by the way, should not be allowed to do. But they did, and now your prices are frozen where they are. But because utility rates continue to rise, now as we go into what's supposed to be clean, green, affordable, reliable energy, it turns out that none of that's true as we go more toward wind and solar. It's not clean, it's not green, it's not reliable, it's not affordable, it's not sustainable. And the more we get into wind and solar, the higher our prices go for electricity, despite all of the subsidies. So if you were told to freeze your prices, and realize as a grocery store chain, your margin, especially if you own a small grocery store in some rural area, your profit margin is about 1%. It's not much. You might think, oh, well, that guy owns a grocery store. He's making a lot of money. He's making about 1% off of everything he has in the store that he sells. His profit margin is not a lot. So they freeze your prices, then your electricity rate goes up, and it will. But you're not allowed to adjust your prices to cover your higher electricity costs. Now what? Then your insurance company comes along and raises prices on insurance for whatever that you in your grocery. I mean, think about it. A grocery store has to be insured for quite a few different things. As a grocery store, imagine, just let your imagination run wild on how many different things a grocery store would have to insure. Not just employees, but against customer problems too. Those insurance rates go up. Now, how are you going to cover that? You can't, because government just froze your prices. Now, they might think, well, you're a grocery store, you can afford it. No, you can't. Especially if you're a small grocery store. And I mentioned there's big chain ones that will be able to handle all of this a little bit longer because they're much bigger companies. But in the long run, even they run into problems. It's the small stores, the little mom and pop ones. You know, the little guy, which the Democrats say that they are out to protect. Well, the little guy gets hit first because he's the little guy. He can't afford to fight against this. He can't afford to battle increased electricity rates and increased insurance rates. Now, what else goes up? Because of higher fuel costs, the distributors who deliver food to your grocery store, well, they're going to have to raise their rates in order for them to make a profit in delivering the food to your store. So now your food costs are higher, your electricity costs are higher, your insurance is higher, but you're not allowed to raise your food prices to keep up with the cost because Kamala Harris says that you're gouging. Now, if we play this out, we can then go on to imagine other things that would raise in costs. And how are you supposed to afford? What do you do then? In order to stay in business, at first you might try doing things like cutting back on employee hours. Now you're hurting, talk about the little guy. Grocery store employees, God bless them, they work very hard. Retail is hard, folks. I was a retail manager many years ago. Retail is very hard. People who work in grocery stores, it's not an easy business. It's really tough. And they don't make a lot of money doing it. But as an owner of the grocery store, you're going to have to make cutbacks somewhere, right? So in order to cover these raises in costs, you're going to have to cut back on things like employee hours. Well, now, that's going to hurt. And that's also going to affect the quality of food service that you have when it comes to laying stuff out for your customers. Because, most grocery stores, even the small mom and pop ones, there are people that are literally up all night long cleaning the store and stocking the shelves for business next day. So you're going to walk into your local grocery store and it's not going to be as nice. Now, everything I'm mentioning still happens to the big stores, too. Not just the little guys. So let's just keep running through here. What else could possibly happen that could raise prices? And then what do you as a grocery store owner do? Because you can't raise your prices. It's illegal now. You can't raise prices. By the way, and let's take a look at what Kamala Harris wants to do. She says she wants to freeze prices at the grocery store on day one. She becomes president, day one in office. We have frozen prices at the grocery store. That's what she said she wanted to do. She might deny that later, but that's what she's saying right now. Honestly speaking, she should not have the authority to do that at all, executive order or whatever. We don't run in that kind of a country. It would take an act of Congress. And even then, Congress shouldn't have that authority. Chet Yoder says, let's see, 818,000 jobs gone according to the government money thing in Jackson. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of people that are going to lose their jobs over stuff like this. In order for you're a local grocery store owner, you're making cutbacks to try to keep your store open. And at some point, you may even cut back to save money. You're not open every single day of the week. Okay, but what else can you cut back on? And then like the article I was reading said, well, you might go ahead and switch off to some items that aren't grocery items in hopes of making money somewhere else. Now, what does that do for small communities? I forget which the store was. It's been a while, but I remember a while back in Graybull, Wyoming, and they had a grocery store closed, and I thought, what are they going to do? They're going to have to drive a long way to get groceries now. Wow. What happens if you're a small town that has like one grocery store? Yeah, and then it's a locally owned grocery store too, and it's gone. But again, I still go back to the Democrats will say, we're here to protect the little guy. Will price controls hurt the little guy first? Bert and Cheyenne, if grocery prices are too high, let's freeze prices. Government spending is too high. Let's freeze. Now that, Bert, now you're thinking. If you really want to get prices lower, the first thing you do is freeze spending in government, then start reducing the influence of government on the free market. Now you're fixing prices. 846, wake up, Wyoming.
Want to talk to Glenn? Call 888-97-WOODS or chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
8:49 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So Frank Gambino is out till tomorrow, and David Settle's also away on business. So it's just you and me right now. Real quick before I get into the fake sports segment over there, this is the worst time to be a tourist in Wyoming right now. And the reason why is it was dangerous enough to try to approach a fluffy cow and get a selfie or pet it or whatever. Really, it was bad enough. We are now into bison mating season. That's right, it's time for the rut. That means these big guys are feeling it. You know, the big it. This is much like, picture a trucker who's been on the road for too many months all alone. Now he's back at the local watering hole and he has had too many beers. There's two things he wants. He wants to fight, and the other one I can't say on the air. That's basically what these bison are out to do, both of those. Now, with the story that I wrote on the Wake Up Wyoming website, for your amusement, you can watch bison. There's one, the first video I have. You see a long, snowy road in Yellowstone, and there's a car that's stopped on the road. And off in the distance, you see this dot. And what the dot is it's a big male bison running directly at him from way off. And that thing runs a long way and runs right up to the car and bang, rams it head on. I've got several videos like that. But that's basically what's going on in Yellowstone right now. So I got several videos of bison attacks during rutting season. They are out for blood. Now, this is handy if you are a Wyoming resident and you want some great pictures and video of tourists getting mauled. This is the perfect time to go. Get those pictures, make a name for yourself, go viral on social media.
You guys say the meanest things to these athletes, the meanest things. Like they were watching Tom Brady and they were like, Tom Brady, you suck. Tom Brady sucks. I don't know that much about football, but I'm pretty sure Tom Brady doesn't suck. At football, I'm pretty sure you suck. I'm pretty sure all you suck at football. I just wish these athletes would stand up for themselves, against these horrible things you say. I wish just one time Tom Brady would look directly into the camera and be like, hey man, I got this. I make $20 million a year and you can't even do a sit-up.
For years, I was a child. And during that time, I was terrible at sports. I'm still an awful athlete. My body is bad at sports. That's the problem. And I say that my body is bad at sports because I think my brain is good at sports. I think my brain understands how a human being could, dribble down a basketball court and then make a layup, right? But then it has to outsource the job to my weird and feminine limbs. And so when I play basketball, it looks like I just bought my body and I don't know how it works yet. But I played basketball. I played basketball for 5 years. And I was a bench warmer all 5 years. And if you were never a bench warmer, I cannot express to you the humiliation of every Saturday morning putting on a pair of breakaway pants and never having a reason to break them away. Then they're just pants. I once got into a game for the last 30 seconds, okay? Because we were winning. And I walked out on the court and I had to go half of 1 minute without doing anything wrong. I walk out there and I get fouled right away. I get knocked to the ground. So this referee runs over to help me up, and he's like, hey, don't you worry, son. We're going to get you some free throws. I was like, oh, no.
Coming up on some local business we have to take care. We're going to roll into news time after that. National local update on your weather forecast. Open phones in 9 o'clock hour. 888-97-WOODS, 888-97-WOODS. I'm going to rush off and see how I-80 is doing now that it's closed for a hazardous waste spill and get back with you on that one. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. You, but I'm having a real busy morning this morning, which is a good thing because I love my job. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. 9:06 the time.
Today's show is sponsored by Pre-Chewed Bubble Gum, scraped fresh from under high school desks. Yum, yum.
And if the person before you enjoyed it, then I'm sure you'll enjoy it too.
Warning. Wake Up Wyoming is about to enter daily open phones. This means that anyone will be allowed to call in and talk about anything. I mean, imagine if we actually allowed you on air to say anything you wanted. Scary, right? Well, we're just that brand of crazy. If you are offended by what other people think, then maybe you want to tune out right about now. Just saying. If you should choose to call, just remember, the more funny and interesting you are, the longer Glenn will keep you on the line. Obnoxious jerks will be hung up on. Dave, all right, strap in, and let's do this thing.
888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. I'm still monitoring what's happening. Again, thanks for everybody who sent me information, but all I know so far is I-80, half of it is closed. Cheyenne, all the way over to Wamsutter, closed. And if you're thinking, well, I'll head up around, let's say Medicine Bow, past Hannah and down to, and no. With all due respect to Bosler and Rock River, don't want to leave you guys out, but that's close. And then if you wanted to go someplace like, I'm going to go over Medicine Bow Peak, and no, you're not going up and around that way either. So what's happened is a hazardous material spill. I don't know what that material is, but that's shut down that whole section of highway as they clear that. They just don't want anyone going past it as they're cleaning it up. And I think it was in the westbound lane, but they got to close down the eastbound lane, too, in order to do this. So from the looks of it, it's closed down right now. And that's all the information I have. If anybody out there knows anything more, especially if you're from YDOT, 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. Now, also, I'm still watching and looking at more information that came in from last night's election. Quick recap, unless you got something more you'd like to add. Yes, Barrasso wins. Yes, Harriet Hageman wins easily. Wyoming Freedom Caucus gained quite a few seats in the House of Representatives. Much bigger footprint for the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. And some age-old names, like the Speaker of the House, who has been around for 24 years in the Wyoming House of Representatives, is out. Some big names are gone, replaced by newbies. So it's going to be a really interesting legislative session to see what gets done this next time around. And that's what I know so far. Smaller, more local races, if you've got them, I'd love to hear what they are. And I don't care where in the region that you're from, because to me, I think it's interesting to all of the state of Wyoming to figure out what kind of direction we're going. It doesn't matter if you're in the tiniest little town, wherever. Melissa is in Centennial. Hello, Melissa.
Hi, Glenn. How are you this morning?
Live and kicking, and definitely over-caffeinated.
Okay. I've been there myself. I have a question for you. I got a text from Obama for money.
Really?
And he says that Trump is circumventing the Constitution, undermining democracy, taking away our freedoms, and tearing people apart.
Of course.
Could you give me examples of any of those that Trump actually did any of those things?
See. So we'll start with circumventing the Constitution. Let's see. How did he do that? Well, I would say that you're not necessarily looking at the Constitution of the United States of America. I think that's what they're missing. They keep assuming that we're under some other kind of constitution, the Democrats do, because if you look at the way they do business, it's not the way that the American Constitution was written. So I think they're reading the wrong Constitution when they say that. Okay, what was the next one?
Undermining democracy.
Okay, well, they're getting that one wrong because we are a republic. We're not a democracy. So, of course, he's undermining. We're not a direct democracy. We're a democratic republic or a constitutional republic, if you want to put it that way. So if he's trying to undermine democracy, absolutely, because Trump understands that we're a republic. And what's the last one?
Actually, there are two more.
Okay.
The next one is he's trying to take away our freedom.
Okay, yeah, see. It really is interesting to me that I even listen to Kamala Harris and other people like that say, well, we want to restore freedom. And yet I wonder, how is it freedom when Kamala Harris says she wants to get rid of your rights to buy private health insurance or have a health care savings account, but she's going to force you into a government-run, single-payer, universal health care system? Somehow they think that that's freedom. Them telling you what to do, they think is freedom. And they get really mad when someone tells them that freedom actually means you get to make your own decisions and it's none of their business. So I think they're seeing that one backwards. But that's how communists see things. And what's the last one?
Okay. Well, and I thought that he was talking about reproductive rights freedom.
Oh, okay.
As well.
Okay.
And the last one is Trump is trying to tear people apart.
I see. Yeah. Well, let's see now. When it comes to tearing people apart, I understand that Trump does a fair amount of name calling, for sure. But when we take a look at the Democrats here, who currently is the party of cancel culture? And I would say that would be the Democrats. They would have to be, right? Yeah, because they love you as long as you agree with them and do what they say. But as soon as you become an independent thinker, well, oh my Lord, they're going to destroy your life. So I really don't understand. I think, okay, wait, I do understand, Melissa. Here's how this works. Bringing people together means that you and I, Melissa, have to think like they think in a giant collectivist hive. That's what they say as bringing people together. And Trump trying to tear people apart means he wants us all to be independent thinkers and lead our own lives. That's what they see as tearing people apart. Okay, so have I explained that to you then? I think I covered it all, right?
You did. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I guess I won't donate any money to Biden Kamala.
Well, I know what you do is you just let them know that you're going to donate money to Trump on Obama's behalf.
Sounds good.
Sounds perfect. Thank you for.
Good.
Yep. All right. So that's calling from Centennial, which is way out there. Is Melissa? I'm glad she called. That was fun. That was a great time. I like calls like that. I-80 John, Granite Canyon, got an authorized travel for 80, so they are letting local traffic through to Laramie. Okay, now, John's up in Granite Canyon. If you're wondering where that is, between Cheyenne and Laramie on I-80, that's where he's from, up and over that pass there. It kind of makes sense to me, John, that when they closed the whole thing down from Cheyenne way out to Wamsutter, and if you're new to this, this would be a chemical spill of some kind. Hazardous material is what they say. That closed down almost all of I-80. And I thought to myself, but what if I'm in Cheyenne and I just wanted to get to Laramie on business, or vice versa? What if I just live in that area and all I wanted to do was some local business on those roads? I don't intend to go all the way down to where the hazardous material is. I just need to do business around in my area. Would they let me? And what John is basically saying is, yeah, that's essentially what they're doing, is if you're just local traffic, they'll let you through. Other than that, I-80 is closed. Boy, what a day.
For I am a sinner in the hands of an angry God. Bloody Mary, full of vodka, blessed are you among cocktails. Pray for me now and at the hour of my death, which I hope is soon. Amen.
Yep, there you have it. A new level of crazy. And you heard it here first. Honestly, he's just happy to be here. Catch Glenn Woods on Wake Up Wyoming, weekdays at 6 on air, on Alexa, and on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
Pardon me, just doing a little bit of work because people are sending me all sorts of stuff. Latest I know of, maybe, on Interstate 80, because Interstate 80 has been closed down, most of it, half of it, from Cheyenne all the way over to Wamsutter. And they are now allowing some local traffic to get to local places. But if you're trying to get way out west, you're not going to do it. And if you're thinking, well, I'll take this alternative route, Bosler to Rock River up to Medicine Bow down to Hannah. No, you're not. Well, then I'll go up and over the Snowy Range. No, you're not. But if you're just doing something local, they'll let you do it. Now, here is, let's see, I want to thank Sonar in Rawlins. Word around Rawlins is it's a jet fuel spill on I-80. Okay, now, that is unconfirmed, but thanks for that, because it's a little hard to get information right now. I'm trying, but I'm also on the air here. It's a little hard to get information, but that's the only thing I've heard from out there, because I keep asking what spilled. Could be jet fuel. Don't know. Whatever it is, it's hazardous enough to close it down for quite a while. And that doesn't necessarily mean hazard in the sense that if you inhale it, you die. If it's jet fuel, that could be, well, if that sucker sparks, boy, you're going to have a fire. It could be that kind of a hazard. So wait and see. We don't really know yet. Let me see. RH in Wiggins, Colorado. Glenn, nonspecific platitudes are what carry Democrat Party and sway so many uninformed voters. Feel-good phrases which say absolutely nothing but sound good to the ear. Yes, and you're absolutely... And that does sway a lot of people. Look, Obama ran on hope and change and moving forward. And a lot of people went for that. Sounds great, doesn't it? Hope for what? Let's talk to Greg in Laramie. Greg, if you're listening, I'm going to use your name on this one. Greg is very liberal. He and I disagree on pretty much everything. So what Greg hopes for and what I hope for America are two different things, right? But if Obama just tosses out hope, everybody will attach what they think that means. So it can mean anything. Therefore, it means nothing. Change. Remember, this is hope, change, moving forward. Change. To what? The kind of change I want and the kind of change Greg wants are different things, aren't they? Moving forward to where? Are we moving forward to someplace better? Moving forward doesn't always go someplace better. Sometimes you move forward to a place that sucks. But if you run on empty platitudes like hope, change, and moving forward, it makes people feel good, and so they vote for that. All right, now, I do like this, since I got that wonderful call from Centennial, and I thought that was really good. Thanks for allowing me to have fun with you on that. That was good. When it comes to who is the party of, freedom, let's talk freedom of speech for a minute here. And one of the things I mentioned when it came to freedom of speech is right now there is one party more than the other who is involved in cancel culture, and that's the Democrats. So Greg in Cheyenne says, Glenn, which party is throwing their political opponents in prison on trumped-up charges? And the moment he said that, I thought, hang on a second, hold on. That gives an entirely new meaning to trumped-up charges. Because before, we have been saying trumped-up charges all our lives. But now, we have trumped-up charges against a guy named Trump. So that gives a whole new depth to trumped-up charges, doesn't it? From now on, whenever someone says trumped-up charges, they're going to think of Donald Trump and the trumped-up charges against Trump. Sometimes we look at the universe and wonder, wow, how did that come to be? Wow, wow. Who would have thought? What a coincidence that is, I guess, right? Trumped-up charges against Trump? Okay. Trump should use that, by the way. So when I talk about freedom, because this is one of the things that the Democrats continue to say, we're for freedom. Let me give you a few examples of when they're not. Because to be fair about it, remember, I'm more of the libertarian guy, and I can sit back and look at the Democrats and Republicans, and I can have fun picking on them both. Okay, but in this case, because the Democrats are holding their convention, I'm going to pick on the Democrats, all right? So they say they're the party of freedom. Kamala Harris says she wants to get rid of private health insurance, also get rid of the whole idea of you having a health care savings account, and however else you might have wanted to handle paying for health care. And she wants a government-run single-payer system. And you are going to join it whether you like it or not. Now, is that freedom? What if you wanted to put a gas stove in your house or other gas appliances, and the Democrats don't want that? Where's your choice? They would like to have all of you driving electric cars. Where's your choice? Speaking of choice, they're against school choice. I know that because every time I bring up school choice, Democrats get a hold of me and they hate the idea. Why can't you choose where your kid goes to school? Why do they have to go to a government school? So you don't have much of a choice there then, do you? They want to solve all sorts of problems as they see problems, but they want to solve those problems by taking away your choice. Yet that's not how America exists, is it? America is supposed to be a republic. What that means is nobody's in charge of you. You're in charge of you. You make your decisions. And hopefully you make good decisions. If you make bad decisions, then hopefully you learn from them and start making good decisions. Some people do, some people don't, but that's up to you. Okay? All of these things, government is not here to tell you what to do, and government is not supposed to be here to take care of you. That's your problem. That's what a free country is, making your own choices, good, bad, or ugly, whatever it might be. And hopefully you wise up as you get older and you start doing the right thing. That's what living in a free country, that's what living in a republic is. So as soon as I come across politicians, which the Democrats currently are, I'm picking on the Democrats because it's their convention this week, that is a party who hates the idea of true freedom. They get very offended when somebody strays and starts thinking for themselves. God forbid you do. If you disagree on social media about certain issues, you get canceled, taking away your freedom of opinion and freedom of thought. So, no, they're not the party of freedom. Now, just for you Republicans out there, just so you know, I can really get you guys upset by talking about the same things with the Republican Party, but currently the Democrat Party is far worse than the Republican Party is, by far. So it's a lot easier to pick on the Democrats. It is low-hanging fruit for a guy like me. Coming up on some local business we have to take care of, we're going to roll into news time. More open phones after that. Wake Up Wyoming.
I'm so happy to be here, yeah. I'm just happy to be here. Still I know the world's on fire, the situation's dire. A lot of work and courage gonna be required, but...
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Make your voice heard at 888-97-WOODS. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
9:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Greg, I see you there. Hang on just a minute because I got a couple of little house cleaning things to do before I get to you. One of them is, so still dealing with the I-80 closure, although they are allowing people, if you're local and you're just driving locally, you can use I-80. And then for the alternate routes that they've closed around I-80, if you're thinking, hey, I can go up and around this way, and no, you can't. Now, Montana, who's in Cheyenne, says, I was told I-80, the alternate routes are closed due to a fatal accident. Not sure how accurate that is. And I don't know if there's a fatality, it's probably related to the hazardous spill, which would be the same thing. Now, as I said, if it is jet fuel, that's an if, I've got Colby from our news department. She's looking into it right now. Yeah, and Chet, you're right. Chet says jet fuel is kerosene, which it is, yeah. But that doesn't mean that you inhale something and you die because you inhaled this stuff. If that's what it is, it's more like hazardous material, because if that sucker catches fire and there was a big tank full of it, imagine the size of the fire. That could be pretty hazardous. Yeah, so anyway, that I don't know if that's true. I have Colby at our news department looking into it right now. Greg is on the phone from Laramie. Morning, Greg.
Morning, Glenn. How you doing?
Alive and kicking, sir.
Okay. Well, I was going to talk about sports, but I'll talk about, open change is the same kind of platitude as make America great again.
You're absolutely right.
Means nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. You're absolutely right, because that could mean, no matter what point of view you're from, pick any different point of view, you're going to imagine what you want that to be in your own head. Therefore, it sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, that's marketing.
Yeah.
When we get to Trump and the Constitution, I would say the fake elector scheme, the January 6th trials, that's the Constitution we're talking about.
Right.
Taking away rights, putting 3 more liars on the Supreme Court to strike down Roe.
Isn't it interesting, though? Hang on a second now. Isn't it interesting that some of the biggest Supreme Court cases were 9-0 decisions, and yet you Democrats keep yelling about how it's a conservative court now?
They're not some of the biggest. Again,
I would say some of the biggest,
though. There were fractions involved in there, and again, you're bringing up.
But no, also again,
really
the whole idea of Roe versus Wade being struck down. Even when Roe v. Wade was put in place by the court, there were justices on the court that said this isn't going to last long because they weren't allowed to do that. This is something that is states' rights. The federal government's not allowed to deal with this, and that's what the court did.
Actually, if you actually read Roe v. Wade.
No, I read the Constitution.
Thing was not deciding it for 9 months.
No, I read
the third.
Now let's talk about what the Constitution said. It is not among the enumerated rights. Do say that it doesn't say anywhere that the federal government can deal with this. Therefore, it's a state's right. The states have to deal with this.
If you look at how they're organized, Glenn.
Yes.
From 1 to 10.
Yeah.
You can get an idea. The Ninth Amendment says, "Hey, these aren't your full federal rights. There's others you got to fight for." And so if you read the Third Amendment and the Ninth Amendment, those are before the 10th Amendment.
Right.
Roe was incorrectly decided. It should have held for 9 months. It should be a federal right.
No, okay. We can go back and forth on this, but we had a Supreme Court take a look at the Constitution and settle it fairly, and it goes back to the states where it should be.
Liars
no, not at all. Not at all. But you and I will continue to disagree on that. Now, I do want to thank you for something, believe it or not. Kyle Cameron called
I listened.
Yeah, and I thought she was very good. She seemed nervous.
And I love that Micah called in and backed her up, too.
Yeah, sure. But she seemed very nervous, but I appreciate, and if you bump into her again, I even sent her a note. Thank you for calling in, because I didn't know anybody was out there running against Harriet Hageman until she called in, which means Kyle Cameron, who's a Democrat running against Harriet Hageman, has a lot of work to do to get attention, because I don't think most people know that she's out there.
I think you're right. And I'll just say this, Glenn. A lot of people are afraid of coming in and talking to you. I enjoy it.
Yes.
And so I imparted that to Kyle.
Okay.
And I think she got the same enjoyment. So thanks a lot for that.
I appreciate it. And I did ask her to call. Well, I'll let you go ahead. What's your last? Because I'm running out of time. Go ahead.
Okay. Sports-wise,
yes.
I think the Wyoming Cowgirls soccer is going to be good. They open 8:25 and this Sunday. So if you can, start to follow them. Go YO.
Okay.
WYO. Okay.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate the call. Now, see, this is why, and I'll give him a compliment. This is when Dave from San Francisco, who's a rare caller, but he's a jerk when he calls in, because he's just an obnoxious jerk, and so I hang up on him. But at least I know Greg annoys a lot of you guys. I get that. But at least Greg, he and I disagree on everything, yet you can see that he's a personable guy. He's nice to talk to, and we can debate without getting mad at each other, which is, I really do appreciate that. So, all right. Let's see. I got another one here. I'm going to see if I can read this real quick. So, hello, Mike. Mike is in Wheatland, and I'm going to see if I can read it before I get out of this break. Hi, Glenn. Since you were talking about the liberals' use of vague, general, unidentified terms and useless talking points, hope and change, I'd like to add a few of my favorites, like fair share, the rich living wage. You will never get a liberal to give you a hard definitive in terms of what these are. How much is a fair share? How much do I have to make to or own to be considered one of the rich? And what income threshold is a living wage? And for that matter, you're absolutely right. Let me give you one more on that. Remember, Obama said, at some point, I think you've earned enough money. Well, when you take a look at the Obamas, they keep earning more and more and more. Well, Barack, Michelle, at what point are you going to start giving back? I'd like to know. Yeah. So there, once again, they talk about what is a fair share, and at some point I think you've earned enough. But it's never for them. No, they're not talking about themselves. Only you. You can't earn too much money. They'll redistribute it, but don't you dare try to redistribute theirs. Now, to give Greg a little bit of credit, he is correct about, and I'm just being fair here. Just like hope and change and moving forward actually means nothing, unless Trump defines what he means by make America great again, by itself that means nothing. So he should answer, which I think he has in the past, but I would like to hear. So you want to make America great again. Okay, Mr. Trump, what exactly do you mean by that? And if he has a good definitive answer for that, then it's not an empty platitude. If he doesn't, then it is. As far as Obama's hope and change and moving forward, he never had a definitive answer for that. It was just empty. It could mean everything. Therefore, it means nothing. 9:44, Wake Up Wyoming.
If it's happening in Wyoming, it's on Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods from K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97-WOODS.
Everyone deserves to live a full life. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow. feedingamerica.org/actnow. A public service announcement brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
9:49 is the time. Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, this is the last day you have to put up with this. Frank is back tomorrow to go ahead and give you sports. I'm glad David Settle was able to fill in. So, thanks to Drew Kirby for this. He was scrolling through some social media and he came across a content creator, Lorenzo Diaz. Lorenzo is Mexican and entertains us with how Mexicans use English words. Like that. Now, I'm going to have to do a restart on this because, again, it kind of came in a little bit late on me. So let me go ahead and do this. Hang on a second here. Wait, it catches back up again. And let's see if I can go ahead and hit rewind.
Second word of the day. Wyoming. Wyoming, there's no chile for the tacos.
Okay, there you go. Mexican word of the day, Wyoming. Wyoming, there's no for the tacos. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. I didn't realize that that was a Mexican word, Wyoming. But apparently, Wyoming, according to this guy, is your Mexican word of the day. If you're kind of groaning and scratching your head and rolling your eyes at the radio, so am I, and I'm the guy who just played that for you.
And we are at capacity tonight here at the opulent Tostitos Center. 50,000 fans are ready to binge drink for a couple of hours. I tell you what, I can't wait. Hi, I'm grown man Chick Sarica. And I'm grown man Bob DeSancio. That's right, Bob. And we have both made careers watching adult men play a simple child's game, all while being paid more than the president. Okay, Chick. And it seems as though the millionaires are ready to play their game, so we can stop stalling with the mindless chat. And the rhinos bring the ball into play. And the alleged rapist passes the big orange ball to the sweaty legal giant. And the legal giant easily puts the ball into the basket, making it look easy, which, if you're 7 feet tall, it is. He made about $8,000 while he was doing that. Now the Power Falcons are bringing the ball into play. The high school dropout inbounds to the convicted spousal abuser. He slashes through all of the drug addicts, dumps the ball off to the genetic freak, and boom, quack-a-lacka, 2 points downtown. Skirplackis, bingo time, sturm scams, I'm just saying words that start with S. I'm going pure nonsense.
And that's what it's like to listen to sports.
Okay? I'm great, Bob.
All right, so real quick here. Now, I don't know. Don't quote me on any of this. I'm just looking now at the YDOT website, and I want confirmation on this. I wanted to see where we were at with the opening of I-80. And right now, they show on this that I-80 is open. There's a couple of areas around Elk Mountain that are congested. Other than that, it shows that I-80 is open. So let me go ahead and click on it. Sutter and Exit Junction, okay. I'm just going through what they're saying. All lanes blocked westbound. So I'm still, on the one hand, I'm getting reports here that things are still blocked. Expect to stop, expect delays. But on the other hand, when I take a look at the color coding of the map, it shows everything in green, so with some delays around the area. Now, I don't know what to make of that at the moment. Like I said, I got our news department. I turned it over to Colby, who is talking with YDOT and other people to find out exactly what's going on. Take a look at our Wake Up Wyoming website. If you have the Wake Up Wyoming app, you'll get an alert at some point. You can also check the YDOT website to find out what the latest of that is. I'm sure they're trying to keep everybody informed. We'll get the information out as soon as we possibly can. Coming up on some local business that we have to take care of, we're going to roll into news time after that. National local update on the weather forecast. Been a busy morning for me. That's not a complaint. It's Wake Up Wyoming.